Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's episode of Teen Talk Live. I am your host, Ann Dillard, and I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, and it is my delight to bring this episode to you. So I want you all to help me welcome our guest, Miss Chima. Chima, how do you say your last name?
Lubin.
Lubin. So help me
Mm.
welcome Chima Lubin, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist. Represent.
Represent.
welcome. Yes, would you please tell my audience a little bit about yourself? Introduce yourself and what do you do?
Yes, well, first I want to say thank you so much, Ms. Dillard, for having me on live. I really appreciate it. I count it as an honor to be here. But my name is Chima Lubin. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, and also I'm a certified clinical trauma professional. And I am originally from Brooklyn, New York.
Yay!
Woo, woo, New York. And I've worked in the mental health field for about 9 years, just started private practice last year. I've worked in outpatient, inpatient crisis unit with children and families, providing individual group sessions, family sessions. Also, I worked in the home as an intensive family therapist, working with at-risk youth and their families
Wow.
before they actually go into the residential. So I just came in there to help stabilize the family, provide some skills and tools for the family to stabilize and so that they can get outpatient services.
Oh my
And
goodness. Wow.
I absolutely loved it. I loved it. I loved it. So I worked with all types of mental health diagnoses, bipolar, schizophrenia, just dysregulation, mood disorders, all that stuff. I really enjoyed it. Then after that, for 3 years, I was a clinical director at the Juvenile Detention Center in Bradenton, and I absolutely loved it as well. I absolutely love
Wow.
that. And so now I have private practice and I work with children and families as well. And I specialize in the treatment of depression, anxiety, and trauma in teens. And I work with the families and young adults as well, millennials. And so I absolutely love it. And I contract on the side as a contract therapist with an at-risk therapeutic group home. And so I provide individual sessions, group sessions, assessments there, consultations, training for the staff as well, trauma-informed training as well. So I'm absolutely really excited to be here, and then I just love what I do. I have a passion for it.
Wow, I can tell in your voice quite an extensive and impressive resume and work experience. So I'm so glad that you are here with us this evening to talk about resilience, how to build resilience in our children and in our teens, because
Yeah,
if there's ever a time that we need for our children to be resilient, right, it's now.
yeah,
So let's talk about why is
absolutely.
this so important right now?
Absolutely, Ms. Dillard. Resiliency really means the ability to bounce back quickly from a difficult situation, right? And so resiliency, children, I think, to be quite honest, I think it's easy for them to kind of bounce back. They're very resilient. You yell at a child, they probably come to you the next time, the next day, and act as if nothing really happened. But
Mhm.
particularly in this time, I think resilience is so extremely important to teach our kids resilience, the ability to bounce back, the ability to kind of learn how to be adaptable, to be flexible. And I think that's extremely important because right now we're in this pandemic, and this pandemic is trauma. This, trauma is anything that is upsetting, scary, that threatens the safety of an individual. That could be domestic violence, sexual abuse, witnessing school shootings, natural disaster. But this pandemic comes in the category of a natural disaster. And it's
It
threatening
really
the
does.
safety of, right. It's threatening the safety of every single person. And so even though as parents, we try really hard, we work really hard to keep our children safe, our teens safe. But unfortunately, things do happen outside of our control, right? Outside of our
Yeah.
families. And so building this resilience, what does that look like? How does that look like in our family? To be
Yeah.
quite honest, is literally first creating that space for them to be able to process their emotions. you know
Mm,
Trauma, the way kids and teens respond to trauma or adults respond to trauma is very different. Kids do not have the language to be able to
right.
articulate what is going on, right? They don't understand the emotions that is taking place. And so
Right.
part of building that resilience in our family, in our children, is creating that space for them to communicate what's going on. And that's kind of asking them, engaging, how are you doing? How are you?
Right.
How do you feel about this particular thing? Right.
Right.
And so I
And I
think
think
that's
I think that's really critical. And for some families, they don't even have the words or the language, to identify what emotions they're
uh-huh.
experiencing, right? And
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that can
yeah,
in and of itself can be challenging to a family as a whole.
absolutely. Absolutely, Ms. Dillard. And you hit a key point on that. We as parents, we have to acknowledge, really give ourselves the permission to feel the uncertainty and the fear, right? And the frustrations
Yeah.
that come with this adjustment. You're right. And
Right.
I think really, Miss Dillard, this literally us giving ourselves as adults the permission to be able to feel what is going on. I think that models to our children that they can do the same as well.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
And so I guess it would be safe to say the more resilient the parents are, the more the child has that capacity of building resilience.
exactly, exactly, right. Exactly, because literally our teens, our children are watching how we are literally responding to this whole pandemic, right?
Right.
It's not so much
Right.
important for us to try to get our kids to learn, and that's important. Not trying to put so much pressure on them, trying to get things done. What's really important,
Right.
because things they are learning, learning is happening. Learning is relational. Learning is taking place. They're watching
That's
how
true.
resilient we are
Yeah.
by how we are responding to this whole thing. Are we blowing up in frustration? Are we reacting to the news and complaining and like, oh my gosh, this is, and going frantic, or are we responding, and kind of engaging in conversations with our children about talking about the facts about what's going on, creating that space for them to communicate. And so, I think that that's part of giving them permission. I think transparency builds connection. Us being transparent with our children. Hey, I'm feel frustrated. I'm having some anxiety around this. I need to take a break, or whatever the case may be. Being honest and open with our teens about what's going on, so that they can see how we model and how we are responding to this situation.
I think you said something that's really key. There is a difference between responding and reacting,
Right, right.
right? And so let's see
Yes.
if we can break that down a little bit, because a lot of times when we are in that, let's say, we talked about the pandemic being a trauma
Yeah.
generating event that's
Yeah.
happening. So a lot of times when we're in that space, we have a tendency to react instead of responding.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Ms. Dillard, you hit a point because, what happens to our nervous system and our brain, literally, when anything threatens our safety, our brain goes into survival mode. We're not thinking rationally. There's
Right?
no ration. Our brain, the part of our brain that's supposed to think clearly, it goes offline, right? And
Off,
so
totally off.
offline. So you're in survival mode. That's why we saw people buying up the tissue and all these things in frantic mode. And so I think that it's really important for parents to really take care of themselves. To be quite honest, I think taking care of themselves every single day, taking a break, making sure that you are doing the things that you enjoy, making sure that you have your own village to talk about your frustrations with.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
Fill
That's
your
right.
cup. We can't give from an empty cup. We can't,
Right?
we have to give ourselves the permission to let our hair down to our own village, our own community of people who are able to understand our frustrations, help us through so that we can be present for our kids and not reactive, in those moments. When we're looking in the news, oh my God, responding, oh my gosh, getting frantic. Our kids are watching. They're watching.
Yeah.
But we need to,
Yeah.
we need to take care of ourselves.
And I think the point that you said is so key, is that if we are able to take care of ourselves, if we're able to process this, and then we can respond, and respond is
Right.
being thoughtful about what we do and what we say and what we model for our children,
Mm-hmm.
right? But if we're not,
Absolutely.
right, if we're not filled up, if we're not regulated ourselves, then we'll
Yeah.
always be reactive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Even as a parent myself, I find myself at times doing that, and when I don't take care of myself, when I'm not getting the amount of rest that I need, rest is absolutely crucial right now. Um,
Yes.
um, but if I'm not taking care of myself and I'm not giving myself the permission to actually feel what is going on, the frustration with this adjustment, yeah, when my kid comes to me and trying to ask me for something, I might, be like a roaring lion in that moment because I'm depleted. And then
Yes.
that damages my
Yes.
relationship with my kid. Then I got to go back and repair. Hey, I apologize. I was a little frustrated. And there's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with doing that. That's actually building connection and resiliency too in our kids.
So would you say resilience is built through relationship?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And especially, I know in this day of age, there's a lot of pressure around performance. There's a lot of
Yes.
pressure around performance, and that's what leads to anxiety because the kids these days, they don't know how to handle pressure of life. And so when we focus on performance, hey, no, a B is not enough. You need to get an A. A minus not enough. You need to get an A plus. When we do that, and not allow our children to kind of fail, because that's part of resilience, is allowing our children to make mistakes, and
Yeah.
not beat them up for that, but acknowledge, hey, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to face difficulty or disappointment. You're going to get through this,
Right.
and that
Right.
communicates to our children that they can have confidence in their ability to maneuver through difficult situations,
That is so
and I
key.
think, yeah, and I think that's really important, because really, um, the survival tools that is needed is the ability in this world today is the ability to adapt, the ability to be flexible, to adjust to difficult things, because difficult things do happen. But our parents, we have a tendency to want to protect our children, and that's okay.
Yes.
But it's okay to allow them to fail. There's nothing wrong with failure.
Right. I
There's
think a lot
nothing
of
wrong with.
times, yeah, I think a lot of times as parents, well, for me, um, believe
Mhm.
in that if I allow my child to fail, or if my child fail at something, that's a reflection on me as a parent. So then I
Mhm.
fail as a parent. So my identity is directly connected to whether my child fails or succeed, and that's
Yeah,
unrealistic.
totally unrealistic. Totally unrealistic, Miss Dillard, because our identity is not in our performance. And a lot of the
Mhm.
times what we do as parents, we we affirm our kids by based on what they do,
Performance
as
based.
opposed to right, as opposed to their character. Hey,
Yes.
I loved how responsible you are or thoughtful you are, because to be honest, the, they need to, when you grow up, you need to be thoughtful, kind, honest. But we don't highlight
Right.
that.
That is so
But
true. That is so
those are the
true.
things you need. Those are the things we need. And so that's why a lot of our teens, they break under pressure. They don't know how to go through healthy, through the normal kind of developmental stressors. Teens, they worry about so many things. They worry about their Instagram posts, the right picture. Are they gonna like me today? Is my friend gonna sit with me for lunch? Does this boy really like me? All these things. Am I gonna get picked for the cheerleading team? All these are normal stressors, but some teens break completely down and become suicidal. They're depressed because they can't handle, the normal the normal
Day to
stresses.
day things.
Right, right. And
Yeah.
so I think our communication kind of just, we need to allow our children to acknowledge their pain, acknowledge their disappointment. Hey, I understand that you are disappointed or you're a little fearful about not being picked for your cheerleading team. But if you don't get picked, it's okay. You'll make it, you'll get through this.
Yes, yes, that is so true. And helping them, not just leaving them alone with that feeling of failure or anything like that, but staying close to them to help monitor and lead them through those challenging stages. I think that's so important.
Absolutely, Ms. Dillard. Research does indicate, and I found it to be really true, that children or teens, they bounce back from traumatic experiences with the calm reassurance of an adult there, that safe presence there, that calm and presence there. And so that place of
There's
safety, yeah, yeah,
Go
it
ahead. Go
helps.
ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
it
helps.
does.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I think
Yeah,
there is this one thing that I had shared a little bit is for people who want some additional resources is the seven C's of resilience. And I'm just going to share a little bit about what they are. And for people who want additional resources on how to help build resilience in your teens
yeah.
and in your children, they can pull that up. And I'll put a link also in the comments. But
Mhm.
control, allowing your child to have some control about over something in their life, that's a big deal,
Yeah,
right? And
absolutely.
yes, and teaching them, I like to do the circles of control and teaching them exactly what
Yeah,
they have control over and what they don't have control over. That's one of
absolutely.
one of the biggest factors
Absolutely.
of building that competence,
Yeah.
having them, what can they be successful at doing, what
Yeah.
about their life that they can manage, and
Yeah.
that helps to foster competence. And like you were
Yeah.
saying, coping, teaching them how to cope, and walking
Yeah.
alongside them, so that
Yeah.
they feel they can develop their coping style, so they're not, just running away from things or are being distracted, because if you don't have the proper coping mechanisms, you won't be able to
Yeah.
bounce back
Right.
from from
Right.
from trauma or situations like this, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's so important.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other one is helping to build their confidence,
Yeah. Yep.
right? You have your
Mhm.
girls group. Tell me about how
Yeah.
different it is when a girl comes in and feels confident, and feel confident in herself.
Man, because of the population that I work with, there's a lot of issues with abandonment, sexual abuse, trauma, all that stuff. And so, they lack confidence, right? Because they didn't get that need for validation and security and love from the parents that were supposed to be there. Um, and so I think, a confidence in a teen really looks like loving herself, loving her body, knowing who she is, and knowing what she likes, what she doesn't like, and more of a leader, not a follower. And so, it's really tough, especially when kids are not getting, like you said, that form of control, where they
Mm-hmm.
are placed in opportunities to kind of, hey, hey, why don't you help me, cook? I want you to kind of, put the
Yeah.
macaroni inside of the boiling pot, kind of thing, giving them some form of, hey, I trust you. That's communicating them that that
Yes.
they can be
Yes.
trusted. Yeah.
Yes. That is,
So
and
I
that's
think
building so many of these C's, Chima. It's building
correct.
connection, right? Connection
Yeah.
is the next one. Having,
Yeah.
somebody who can help you feel emotionally safe is in situations like
Yeah.
this. That is
Yeah.
so important. And I know
Yeah.
that, from the work that we both do, we're hearing from a lot of teens who are not feeling safe. They're not feeling
Correct.
physically safe or
Yeah.
emotionally safe.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
That is so
as
true.
parents, we have to make sure that our teens are feeling connected to us and feeling that sense of security, so that
Yeah.
their resilience can be built.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And as you were talking, even though teens at this point, they are a little bit more independent, they want to stay in their room and isolate themselves. And so it might appear that they really don't want to talk, but that's not the truth. That's not the truth.
That's right.
You know,
That's right.
teens respond to trauma very differently. You have to look at the sudden change, pay attention to the sudden change. If you notice that your teen was outgoing and bubbly and extrovert, now all of a sudden they are isolative, they don't want to communicate. You want to pay attention to that. Or if you notice your teen that is, a little bit more introvert, they're to themselves, they're all of a sudden they're very talkative, they want to be around you, cling to you. You you want to pay attention to that. That's not normal. They're
Yes,
trying to that's their way of responding to what is happening. So it looks
exactly.
very differently. It looks very different,
Yes.
and
And you
kind of
have
paying
to figure
attention to
out
those
what it
signs.
is. Yeah. What are they trying to communicate is the key. Because a
Right.
lot of times they don't have the words for what they're trying to communicate. Yeah.
Correct.
And then
Yeah.
the last two C's of building resilience is character.
Yeah,
helping
that's
your
good.
teen develop their character, right? One of my
Yeah.
sons, every time he would do something and it was hard, I would say, but that's building character, son. That's building character, right? So that's, when
Hmm.
I when I call him now and I said, well, how are you doing? He's like, Mom, I'm building character. I'm like, yeah, you're working hard. Right. And so helping the
Yeah.
team to build character so they can know what are their values, what do they like, what are
Yeah.
their gifts, what kind of things comes
Yeah.
natural for them, right? um
That's good.
I
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
telling you, these 7 C's of building resilience is so
Mm-hmm.
critical. And I think
Mm-hmm.
the last one, contribution. And you were
Yeah,
saying,
that's good.
yes,
That's good.
join in me and help me make dinner, right? It
Yeah.
could be
Mm-hmm.
something as simple as that, but at least they feel like they're contributing to something. They're
Right.
contributing to a cause,
Right.
right?
Right.
Um,
Right.
Having
Right.
your teens have chores in the household is
Oh,
contributing to
yes.
the household.
Oh, yes.
So so is so key. It's so key that we look at these different ways of building
Yeah.
resilience. And I
Yeah.
just thought that was so good. I'll post it in the comment section.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
this has been great,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
we've talked, we've had such a good conversation about building resilience because we need it. Our teens need it, our
Yes.
families need it at this
Yeah.
time. So as we come to a close, what are 2 to 3 things that you would really like parents to know about building resilience in children and teens?
Well, Ms. Dillard, as you were talking, you said something about character and how we build character. And I believe I said that earlier, mentioned it earlier, how we build character and help our children, our teens identify good characteristics which are needed and, like being honest and integral. And to be honest, is affirming
Yeah.
um, when we actually see them doing something that is thoughtful, you
Yes.
know,
Yes.
affirming those types of characteristics. My son said to me earlier, we were driving the car and he said, Mommy, I gave away my Pokemon cards, because he loved Pokemon. And I said, well, Daddy told you to give it away, and he said, no, I gave away my Pokemon cards of my own will. you know, I gave it
Wow.
away. And I said, wow, Elijah, that is very thoughtful of you. That is
Yeah.
very thoughtful. That is very considerate because I know that you sleep with those cards. You go everywhere with those cards. So
Right.
that
Right.
means a lot to you. And he asked me, he said, Mommy, do you remember giving something away that you really liked? And I was like, wow, good question. I'll come back to you. Um, but because I grew up in a dysfunctional family, and
Uh-huh.
so I grew up in foster. Portion of my life was in foster care. And so I really wasn't taught the value of being selfless or considerate or there's a lot that goes on into that. And so I think really positive affirmations, affirming when they are actually doing some, not based on their performance, but
Yeah.
things that highlight their characteristics, that life
Yeah.
skills, that um that benefits them as adults, life skills that benefits them in the long term. So I think as parents, I really wanted to hone in that as parents that we need to kind of parent with a long-term view in mind,
Yeah.
as opposed to the here and now. So
That's good stuff. That is good stuff. And
yeah.
kudos to Elijah for giving away his prize Pokemon cards. Now, see, I probably would have responded differently because I'm still being made.
Yeah,
Feel like, how you gonna give away? You know how much money I pay for those cards, which
exactly.
is not,
Exactly.
that's reactive. If you're listening to me,
Right.
that's not what you do. You respond,
Right.
which is what Miss Chima demonstrated. She responded. She gave a
Right.
thoughtful, affirmative response, and that's what builds resilience in our children.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and he
Wow.
he he realized the reward of giving away, not knowingly, that he was able to, get something, from the GameStop. He didn't, it
Yeah.
didn't occur to him that, okay, if I've given this away, but that just happens. You give, you get
Yeah.
it just
Return, well, it's one of the laws of, increase.
right.
And even though he wasn't thinking about it that way, that's what happened for him. And just the feeling of giving
Yeah.
is such an important and such a confident booster. And giving,
Right.
which is one of the C's, contributing,
Yeah.
making a contribution,
Yeah.
and it comes
Yeah.
back to him in the sense of building his confidence and connection. So
Exactly.
important, so important.
Exactly,
So
Miss
you
Dillard.
keep keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Chima, what do you have coming up for you, and how can people find you?
Yes, well, I'm a part of, I'll be speaking in a virtual women's summit June 27th. It's called Empower, Educate, and to Edify. And I'll be part of that summit and one of those, a lineup of speakers who will be talking about, just mental health and the business and kind of how that relates. And from an edification standpoint, encouragement. And
Awesome.
also, yeah, I'm excited about that. And also on the 27th in Tampa, in July 27th, hopefully, I think it might be online, but it's a free event, educational event. I'll be talking about complex trauma in the African American community and
Wow.
how therapists can be culturally competent as far as when working with the African American with dealing with complex trauma. I think that's very important as a therapist to be to understand how to kind of maneuver why black what African American don't want therapy and how it's a stigma and et cetera, et cetera. And so how do we maneuver through that? So I'll be talking about that. And you can find me. I have a Facebook page in Kabod Counseling, at Kabod Counseling. And my website is kabodcounseling.com. I'm on Facebook and I'm on Instagram at Kabod Counseling as well.
Awesome. So when we're done, if you could drop those links in the comment section, we'll be so happy to join you and check
Yes.
out your work. But I just want to say thank
Yes.
you so much for joining us tonight on Teen Talk Live.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's just been a pleasure having this conversation with you about building resilience in our children and in our teens, right? Thank
Yes.
you, thank you,
Yes.
thank you for your time.
Thank
Well,
you.
everybody, thank you for joining us tonight for this episode of Teen Talk Live. Please share this out with somebody, and just keep listening, keep joining us. Join me on my YouTube channel, and Dillard LMFT, my YouTube channel. Like and subscribe it so that you can get all these resources that we're putting out. So thank you
Yes.
again and
It's my
have a good night.
privilege. Yes.
Yes. Stay safe, everybody.
Yes.